All right, so this video is actually just a little bit of sort of, I guess, inside baseball to something that I haven't found a whole lot of content on. When I was trying to really just learn a way to do this, a lot of things when you're a technician, a lot of things you kind of just pick up because not everybody shares how they do certain things. Um, Although, if you ask, most people in the trades they'll teach you anything if you just ask, because not everybody's so concerned about job security that they don't want to spread knowledge to the next generation of technicians or electricians or plumbers or anything. Most of them, there's enough work out there in most places for everybody to eat, man. So if you're ever curious about something and you see someone doing something and you want to kind of pick up a skill, just ask. You'd be shocked how excited some guys get to share information. It's happened to me a bunch of times. So anyway, this real quick, I'm doing some cabling, and I'm doing something right now that I find very tedious, but that's because I take my time and do it this way, because there's a certain look that you want to end up having at the end where it's nice and clean. And I'll cut to the chase. So here's basically so you have wires that come down from a ceiling, right? And they go into a data rack. I haven't built the rack yet. It's right here. So that's going to go up on the wall here. And the wires need to come down, and I'll keep some slack in it. They'll loop, and then they'll go into a patch panel, right? Good. Little 24-port patch panel. All right. So here's the tricky thing. The tricky thing is the way wires go into a patch panel is my knuckles are ashy, and I'm light skinned. So the wires come down and they go in, but they go for each port. They start on one end and go all the way to the other. This is like 1 through 24. So the tricky thing is if you cut all the wires the exact same length, once they make it to the patch panel, if you cut them all the same length and then just put them on one by one, then you end up with the wires are going to lay down in this little channel and everything, and then you'll have the wires nice and smooth coming out, but then it's not going to be the exact same length going all the way up because your wires are all separate lengths now because you had to cut them, because they landed here in different spots. Because they landed in different spots, if you want the wires to lay straight across and then come out in a nice smooth line, then yeah, the lengths are going to be all jacked up. All right, so here's basically the way that I end up doing this. I label all my wires. I only have 7 lines right here. So I label them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I have an access point. So one's labeled AP. All right, so 7 lines, and I want to do them in order. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? The way that I'm going to do this is I cut all my wires to the exact same length first. Right? I cut all of them to the exact same length, and then I set a defining mark, basically, and I'll show you. I set a defining mark so that I'm going to cut the wires down so they end up being the exact same length, and I'll show you kind of how I do this. I'm going to try to do this with this camera in such a way that it makes sense. All right, let's see. Let me back this up some. Give me a little bit more. Hey, that's a little bit better. All right, cool. All right, so first thing I do is I want it to be nice and neat. I'm on wire number 4 right now, okay? So the first thing that I'll do is I'll actually make sure that these are the wires I've already terminated. They're right there, so they're nice and smooth together. So the next wire in line, I'll make sure that I'm pulling it out of my bundle kind of right next to them, so that way when I bring it here and lay it down, it's still going to be nice and smooth going up, okay? So here's my mark. What I do is whatever side I'm starting on, I'll take each wire, cut them the exact same length, and before I cut a wire down to size to make it the same as the others, I'll lay it all the way across to say the very end here. So I'll lay that across to the end, and then I'll basically stretch it out to the exact spot where I'm going to mark it is right before the spot where I'm going to punch it down. So I'm on number 4 here. So I'm actually going to put me a mark right there, just before this section here, which is where it's going to punch down. I know this might be kind of confusing if you don't do this like for a living, but hopefully you understand that this is something that you do encounter. I'm pretty sure I'm probably doing it like a tedious way and a longer way than anybody else. Nobody taught me. I'm just sharing this because this is the best that I've come up with to actually make it look decent. So here's one other thing. One other thing is you not only have to cut the wires down to a consistent length so that way you end up with a straight line, you also are gonna, you're gonna strip back the jacket so you can expose the inner wires to be able to terminate them here onto the patch panel and also. So what I did was the very first one that I stripped off, I kept the little piece of jacket and I lay that down from my same mark where I'm gonna cut. I actually lay it across right there and I'll mark the length of that jacket. So that way I'm also trimming the jacket back the exact same length as I trimmed the jacket back on all the previous ones, if that makes any sense. So then I'll cut at my first mark. So now that's my length. And then now, I use these for wire strippers. Everybody does their own thing. Me, I just have these Southwire, the Southwire termination tool that it has a little blade on it right there, little jacket blade. See the little gap right there for the wire to sit on? There's a blade in there, and it just strips absolutely perfect without scoring the wire or anything. I love it. So it's kind of silly that I keep this extra one. I only use this to terminate something if I have like a mod in that's not, easy. It's not like pass through. Then I'll kind of keep this for that. But, some people just stick to certain tools just because it's what you always use. All right, so anyway, honestly, that's pretty much all I really wanted to share with this right here. And then once I'm all done, all this will be the exact same length going up, so it'll be nice and smooth. I'll even take this right here. I kind of just have a few pieces of Velcro just to try to keep it together while I do my terminations. Once I actually get this mounted in the rack, I'll coil it up a bit better and kind of make this not so, twisted. Do is really about presentation, even more than anything else. Functionality is one thing, but what really makes a difference to your customers a lot of times is how pretty something looks. Even if you know for a fact you did good terminations, everything worked out good, you tested everything is perfect, good. If they look at it and the wire's shit, they're not going to be happy. All right, y'all be easy.